Welcome to the fifth and final episode of Soul Path, the moon in your birth chart. We are now looking at the water moons. Thomas and I have been on this journey going through the moon and all of the signs, starting with fire, moving on to earth, then on to air, and now we are getting into the water moons. So if you or a loved one have your moon in Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, then you're definitely listening to the right episode. Thomas, water is very, very intriguing because we have double water here. We've got the water associated with each of the signs, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, and then the moon itself is water as well. So it's almost like we've got just this double element, almost like the soul being washed. Why don't we start by you telling us what you find in common between all three of these water moons?
Yeah, hello, Kadisha. So that is really interesting today because here in all three signs, it's like the water quality is multiplying with itself, and that gives them a dominant power, so to say, also in the birth chart overall. And although we have water in this intensity in all three constellations, there is a different current, so to say, to it, to use the language related to water. I think about Cancer as, a stream, a small creek, something like this. So it's gentle and not so dominant, finding its way. And if we then compare that to the quality the water has in Scorpio, then we are already talking about a river, that has a stream and has a direction and can sort of transport things and flood over and so on. And usually a river flows into the sea. And that is what I associate with our third sign today, the Pisces, the big sea of emotions and these things. And this is, I think we're going to talk more in detail now.
Yes. And I'm excited to get into it. I like that description of different types of bodies of water in connection to the signs. Now, you speak of Cancer as a gentle stream, and this is, for me, the soul really wanting to establish the personality, the ego. And in my opinion, when we're looking within, then gentleness is really the best way to move forward. And like you said, each of these bodies of water has a current. And with Cancer, we're looking at a current that is more gentle, or I should say a little less intense than the other two. Nevertheless, there is an intensity there that must be recognized. So when we look at Cancer, we're talking about the home, but not just the physical home or the physical house. We are also talking about the inner home or the inner world. So people with their moon in Cancer might find their emotional security within the home, within the family. But what the soul is definitely asking for is for this person with the moon in Cancer to make sure that they also find their emotional security within the self-home. So really feeling grounded at home in a place of warm affection with the self. And because of this home aspect, moon in Cancer can also be very protective. And just like water, they can also be a bit dominant in their relationships, in their desire to keep everyone safe, in their desire to make sure things are moving along in the way that they feel is best for the family and the individual trajectory. Would you agree, Thomas?
Absolutely, Kadisha. You put it really nicely. And I mean, one can really imagine this moon in Cancer as Cancer is also opening up the second quadrant in our birth chart, the soul part, so to say. That the first time, so to say, that you experience emotions and that you try to establish, so to say, out of this yourself, your feelings. And this can sometimes be overwhelming. Because you have to learn actually feelings from different perspectives, different qualities. So that is actually what drives a soul with moon in Cancer. And this is also why it feels sometimes so emotionally detached, touched by certain events or things. And that's why they feel a bit insecure, because there is no order in these emotions yet. Yeah. And that is basically, and you put it already nicely, what a soul with moon in Cancer should develop in, yeah, to become aware of this wide range of emotions that could come up, but they also go, and to feel comfortable with it, and not too much to say relating them to others or the outside world to comfort them, as you said. So that is, I think, the central theme, I would phrase it. And of course, people who have this wide range of emotion, also emotionally, they are good listeners, and they can be very nicely, yeah, and then if they feel secure and comfortable. Also, the opposite could happen, that once this doesn't feel any longer so comfortable, that the feelings and emotions then turn into the opposite, and then the reaction is more concerning and so on. And this is, I think, also important aspect when you enter into a relationship as a person with moon in Cancer, or your loved one is a person with moon in Cancer. And there's only one thing I would mention here, and Khadija, I would be curious how you see that. Being aware of, so to say, your own emotions and expectations towards the person, your loved one, that really helps to be aware, okay, how much do I now expect to feel comfortable with my loved one? And maybe to balance it, and also to express, if there is this kind of firework of emotions at the moment, that you express it and say, at the moment I feel like, and so on. So that I think that honesty and transparency is a good basis, for a partnership.
Yes, I completely agree with your description. And I think it's a great point that you bring up, this opportunity to find home within the partner and establishing this home through honesty and transparency. And I think this is true for children as well. So for parents or guardians with children who have moons in Cancer, that's also going to be an important aspect of the relationship, and establishing a healthy and strong bond is helping the partner, helping the child to engage with their emotions, and also giving them the space to listen to and to trust their intuition. And, you mentioned, establishing kind of the sense of home through the partnership. And that is something that's important for Cancer, because Cancer is associated with the home, but they do love to travel. They do like to be out and about, but it's so important for them to have a sacred space to come back to. And what I like about what you said is, not only should this sacred space be a physical space of home, which could be important for the child and for the partner, but also this emotional space of home, having people at home who they can trust, who they can reach out to, who they can be honest with, who will help them by asking questions to understand their emotions. That's also a kind of sacred space, and creating a sacred home that's important for the child with their moon in Cancer. Thomas, do you have some questions that a moon in Cancer could reflect on to help them connect more deeply with this inner home that we've been describing, and with this inner wisdom, perhaps even as well as with their outer and physical home?
Yeah, Kadisha. So one question that came immediately into my mind is, can I accept and live with the fact that I'm an emotional person, that emotions play an important role in my life? So can I accept my emotional way of being? So this is the first question that came up. And the more I'm aware of that, I think the more comfortable I feel, and the better I can deal then with all kinds of emotions that come up. And there is a second question that, popped up in my mind. And that is about, how much time do I allow myself to explore my inner world, or to be with me? What time do I currently allow myself? And I think this is an important question. And we all have our duties, and we have our jobs in the functional world, and we can be creative, in finding some islands, that are the secret places. Also in a small flat, maybe there is a corner. That room is empty for the next 15 minutes and then it's mine and I occupy it and it's just for me. These kind of things. I'm not talking about the big stuff here.
And I like what you say about, do I allow myself to be an emotional person? Do I recognize myself as an emotional person? Because in my experience with Cancer moons or with moon in the 4th house, sometimes there is that need to engage in self-acceptance and also to see their ability to engage with emotions as a strength so that it can also foster self-belief. In some schools of astrology, the moon in the 4th house can be considered skip steps. And one of those steps that the soul might have skipped is really taking the time to really believe in the self and support whatever dreams the self has by engaging with those emotions and then acting accordingly. So I appreciate that question, and also this creating sacred space within your own home, like just finding that corner or crevice that belongs to you, even as you say, just for those 15 minutes. We're moving now from Cancer into the rushing river of Scorpio. And Scorpio to me is a really special kind of energy. It's the energy of the 8th house and also Pluto. And this can be, a rushing water where it's not necessarily so easy to see the bottom, to see the riverbed. So to me, it's an energy that is very secretive. And because of it being secretive, it can also be very intense. There's a depth of being that I connect with Scorpio energy. And it's also an energy of rebirth, an energy of metamorphosis. So I find that there's a lot going on in the space of Scorpio, but one wouldn't necessarily know it because it's all happening under the surface. And I like to think that Scorpio moons are also have the potential to be good detectives because they're so good at operating below the surface. Though in my experience, I'm not sure if they're actually aware of this gift, which is why I love such podcasts as this, in the hopes that it will awaken people to their ability to move in these less obvious spaces. What is your experience with the Scorpio moon?
I like all what you said, because indeed that is a very powerful combination, having your moon in Scorpio. And it's very important from my understanding and from the archetypal view on cosmology that you are aware of your power that you have with moon in Scorpio. What power do I mean? So all your thoughts, your intentions, your pictures, that you create, they have the potential to manifest, and that is special. And that is really something you should be aware of, because thoughts and intentions can be for the good, which is nice and we're happy, but it could also be for the opposite. And this is something I really stress when talking with people about their birth chart who have moon in Scorpio. And also one thing I would like to add is that, as you said, they have this under the surface, this emotional intensity, and they sense, what other people think and feel. And they have also the ability to articulate things or expectations without speaking, that is also under the surface. And this is also powerful. And it's always with powerful things, the better you are aware of it and you consciously then decide for what topic to use it. So with other words, be aware of your thoughts and your intentions, because they have the power to manifest, or even the power to be communicated to other people without really speaking,
Mm-hmm.
And that is a wonderful gift. And because I like that people who have their moon in Scorpio, they tend to have really deep talks. So they do not have the chat, So with them, you can really talk about deep topics that are related to whatever question is in the room, So you can have a real conversation with them about it.
And what I think is important, particularly with the Scorpio moon, it's important for all moons in all aspects of astrology. It's also the cultural conditioning because you're right. This Scorpio is connected to psychoanalysis, asking the why behind things. But I found in my experience that some of the Scorpio moons I've worked with aren't necessarily aware of this opportunity or don't necessarily use the opportunity. And it's based on the culture that they grew up in, which tends to emotionally suppress or repress things that they're feeling or things that they're thinking. So if one has grown up in that culture with a Scorpio moon, it's almost like an extreme, because Scorpio is already under the surface, already moving in spaces where, one cannot necessarily see. And if the cultural tendency is to suppress emotions, then it's just pushing the Scorpio down even more deeply into the depths. And what we actually need is for Scorpio to rise, because Scorpio is connected to the archetype of the phoenix, also the archetype of the eagle in its highest vibration. So what we actually need is for Scorpio to rise. And so if you have a Scorpio moon and you grew up in a culture that encourages you to suppress these feelings, then it would be valuable to work with the self or to work with someone in a way that allows you to really engage with your emotions and your feelings, because Scorpio is such an important energy, not just for the individual, but for all of us, because Scorpio helps us to engage with the parts of us that we don't necessarily show, that others don't necessarily see. And so people who have placements in Scorpio may draw people in who tell them their secrets or who talk to them about things that are really important for them. And I think it's important for Scorpio moon to also have that space to share.
Absolutely. I agree. And what I would like to add for the moon in Scorpio, there is a strong willingness to be active and to deliver, things. And there's a commitment then to deliver. And that is sometimes also leading to a bit of restlessness, there is not enough time to reflect and to share own views and emotions, as you mentioned. So that's why I really like what you said, Kadisha.
So then help us out, Thomas. Do you have a couple of questions that Scorpio can use to reflect? Or even before we get into that, perhaps we can say a couple words about how people with a child or a partner who has a moon in Scorpio, how they can be supportive of that individual. Of course, I think it's valuable to do exactly what we spoke on, which is engaging with the emotions, speaking and opening up a space that allows for reflection. I know that Scorpio is also connected to the archetype, right, of the detective. So sometimes they need proof. Prove it to me. Show me that what you're saying is true. And so it might be helpful for a parent or guardian or partner, not necessarily to be offended if the individual insists on really understanding the truth behind something or how a person knows something. It's just this desire to have evidence, which is connected to the archetype of the detective in Scorpio, this psychoanalysis, this getting to the why behind things. Do you have any input for someone who has a child or partner with a Scorpio moon? And then maybe once you've shared that, you can also share a couple questions that a Scorpio moon can reflect on to help them share their hidden depths.
Well, so I think if you have a child and you are a moon in Scorpio, or you have your moon in Scorpio, so then, again, it is advantageous to be aware that you have this power, this to manifest things, and that you, without speaking, can set expectations. So it's a bit just to reflect, how you communicate with your child, and being aware that it can read, so to say, also without hearing, your thoughts and your intentions. And this could create more pressure than you actually intended, because you didn't speak it out, but, you feel that in some way. And so children, and if they have also a water quality like this in their chart, they might feel that kind of pressure. Yeah. Other than that, I think it's good to, in a partnership, also to reflect a bit, you know, towards my own intentions, reflect my own intentions towards the partner. So how much of a clear picture do I have? And with this, an expectation, and to what degree, yeah, can I be flexible and accept, okay, that is my way of looking at that, and my partner's way is kind of different. So how easy can I do that? So that is, so to say, a thought and first question for that topic. And second question I would here share is, do I regulatory check in with my feelings, intentions, and also my yearning or longing? You know, I think that is a good question to regularly check, because that empowers you really to consciously create in this world.
Yeah, thank you for that, Thomas. And I have to agree. I mean, Scorpio is across from Taurus in the birth chart, in the zodiac. And like you already mentioned, these are powerful energies with regards to master manifesting. So you said that's just a great question to reflect on, also to activate those powers of pulling in more of what it is that a person wants. So now we're moving into the open sea of Pisces, as you described it. And I like the image of the open sea because for me, the open sea is just absolutely beautiful. It's majestic and almost overwhelming in its beauty and in its expansiveness. And at the same time, it can be a bit frightening because it's just so expansive. And Pisces is the soul reaching out to the creator, ready to return. It's the end of the zodiac, the end of the cycle. And so it's a very emotional sign that's deeply connected to the energy of the divine, or I should say the energy of source. And almost the same way we want to use both our hands to try to grasp the ocean and not quite succeed. It's the same when it comes to Neptune, because Neptune is a dissolver. It's not necessarily so easy to grasp. And so someone with the moon in Pisces might give off an energy to others where others feel like, I can't quite get a handle on who they are, or every time I think I've got them in my arms, somehow they manage to wisp away. That's a bit of a Pisces Neptunian energy that has the ability to move within this material world and at the same time be deeply connected to what is beyond.
Absolutely. I would give that the headline, like citizen of two worlds, so to
Yes.
say. Yeah.
Yes.
And that nebulous, waxy, inconcrete quality, so to say, you described it, how people perceive such persons. And I think if you own your moon in Pisces, you might also feel that it's sometimes challenging to navigate through everyday life, through the functions of life. And as there is one effect in this power that you described, this is this dissolving effect. And you may have learned or experienced in your life that for certain topics, the more intention you put in it to get it really done and to make it perfect, and that it exactly becomes the form that you have in mind, that the more you did that, the less you could really execute it. And at the end, it somehow got dissolved or jeopardized by something. And that is the power of Neptune, you know. And this is sounding now so challenging, but this is only one side of the medal. And as we know in astrology or in hermetic rules, there's an opposite side. And there's also a lot of strength in this quality because the ocean is so wide and so deep and unexplored, as you said so nicely. And if we associate it with emotion, then I would see the sea of emotions, which actually are a strength, because people who have their moon in Pisces, from my experience, if they are aware of, and if they develop this quality, they are very open to arts, to theater, to any kind of expressive creative things, and a lot of actors comes into my mind. They have, by the way, a moon in Pisces, at least, if not even the sun. Yeah. So that is a very nice energy and makes the life of so many people much nicer. Yeah. But this is not what I mean, that everyone now needs to go on stage. It just can be to make your soul happy, to feel comfortable, that you go back and just draw something, write something, whatever it is, yeah, that your mind or your soul wants to do. Can you resonate with that, Kadisha?
Yes, Thomas, I can completely agree with what you're saying. With a moon in Pisces, they definitely have a connection to the performing arts as well as to music. And so Pisces is a very sensitive energy, able to feel not only what's going on within the self, but what's going on around the self. So when someone has their moon in Pisces, I like to encourage them to ask themselves, is this me that I'm feeling this energy? Or is it perhaps someone else? Am I picking up on a particular energy in the room or the atmosphere of the room? And that's why I love music being associated with Pisces, because it's so important to cleanse one's energy, to make sure that they're not taking with them someone else's energy that they've picked up on. And music is a great way to cleanse. There are a lot of music available for cleansing the chakras or cleansing the energy body. And I think that's so important for Pisces moons, because they're basically just constantly aware of the energies of the people around them. Crowds may be a little difficult for Pisces moons because they're just picking up on so much at once, and then they come home exhausted from doing nothing. But the exhaustion comes from being aware of the energies and the souls and the spirits of the people around them. So Thomas, what reflective questions do you have for a Pisces moon?
So I would start with one question that came into my mind, and that is related to this creative part. So when did I last take time to do some creative things? Yeah. And there's also another question, in case you have children and you have your moon in Pisces. It's a question. So how much time do I dedicate to my child, to really spend time with it and to just be there and accompany and put my attention to it? Second question. And the final question for moon in Pisces that came up, and that's why I want to share it, is also a bit related to myself. So do I have space and time to withdraw from the outer world and to reflect on my inner world? Because of this sea of emotions, it's also time to reflect and to rest and to recover, as you nicely said.
These are great questions, Thomas. I especially like the question that gives parents something they can do with their child, something that parents can reflect on with their child. This journey through the moons has been so exciting. I hope that our listeners were able to take away something that was valuable to them. Please post in the comments below where you have your moon, if you were able to learn something new about yourself, or if there's something about your moon you would like to share with us that wasn't mentioned. Thank you again for listening, and we hope that you'll look up where your loved ones have their moons and tune in to the other episodes as well. Thank you, Thomas, for accompanying me on this journey.
Thanks for listening. Yeah, and thank you, Kadisha, for having me in this podcast series. I really liked to have this open dialogue, as the archetypal astrology I deal with is always open to other techniques. And my question is always, what can I draw from it? So really appreciate it, and hopefully see you soon again. It was a great time. I had a lot of fun, and thanks to all who listened to the podcast.
Yeah, and I hope that we'll get to do something new together soon.
That would be great.
Thank you all for listening. If you found this information informative, then please like and subscribe so that you know when something new is available. See you next time, and thanks so much for listening.